2 solid hours of the best of old time. Radio's crazy answer to the intellectual quiz. It was created by a fella in New Haven, Connecticut named Bob Howell in 1941. He wanted to do a show that punched holes in the other shows which had superiority complexes. Programs like Information Please and Quiz Kids. The most important job in putting the show together was finding the right maniacs. And they did, as you'll hear. The show was on various networks from 1942 through 1949.
What is a gentleman?
A man who never hits a woman with his hat on.
Correct. Pay that man $8. What is etiquette?
Learning to yawn with your mouth closed.
Correct. Pay that man $9 because...
It pays to be ignorant.
Well, here we are again with a quiz program that made it necessary for the educators to discover aspirin. We have a board of experts who are so dumb they think a grass widow is the wife of a lawnmower. First we have the celebrated author, Mr. Harry McNaughton, who has just written a book entitled Pigs is Pigs, or How to Shave with a Razorback Hog. But here he is, Mr. Harry McNaughton.
I have a poem, Mr. Howard.
I see.
Yes. Some men smile at evening, some men smile at dawn, but the man worthwhile is the man who can smile when all his teeth are gone.
Well, all right.
That was written by Gum.
I see. Okay. You want to get a taste in the mouth for that? Next we have a woman whose friends all call her baby because she only has one tooth. A woman who's been on the stage for 20 years. She drove it from Butte, Montana to Carson City. Here she is, Miss Lulu McConnell.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Did I tell you that Mrs. Jones's baby is very sick?
That's too bad.
And you know what she did?
No.
She sent for a baby doctor.
Yes?
Did you ever hear of such a thing?
Well, what's wrong about that?
Well, what does the baby know about being a doctor?
What does the baby know about being a doctor? Logical. Miss McConnell, till I met you, I thought insulin was the latest dope. Next, we have a man who is so dumb when he weighs himself, he always takes his overcoat off and hangs it on his arm. A man who sat in his car for 2 hours waiting for the red lantern on a pile of bricks to change to green. Here is Mr. George Sheldon.
So you know I got a letter from my Uncle Webfoot up in Maine, Mr. Howard. He's got a new cow. A Scotch cow.
A Scotch cow?
Scotch cow?
Yeah.
How do you know it's Scotch?
Bagpipes underneath.
Bagpipes. Thanks a lot. Well, folks, you've just met the experts. Now then, to add a little dignity to the program, we have with us tonight that famous author of that famous book, which has long been forgotten, entitled A Smattering of Ignorance. Here he is, the one and only Mr. Oscar Levant. Good evening, Mr. Levant, and welcome to our program. I'm delighted to have you on it.
From the looks of this crummy bunch, you should be delighted to have anyone on it.
I hardly agree with you. Have you heard this program before?
No, but people have told me it's over my head, and I've got a big head.
I see. Why don't you go home nights?
It's warmer here.
All right. Okay, let me introduce Mr. Levant. I'll have to do this. I know you won't like it, but let me introduce our experts to you. On the right there is Mr. George Shelton.
Shelton?
Shelton.
Wait a minute. I saw your picture in the post office.
You did?
It said underneath, dead or alive. Why don't you make up your mind?
On your left there is Mr. Harry McNaughton.
Oh, how do you do, Mr. Levant? How do you do, sir? I'm very pleased to meet you.
To save time, I don't mind saying I'm pleased to meet you. How do you find yourself?
Oh, I wake up in the morning and there I am.
Too bad you had to wake up. Sitting right beside you, Mr. Levant, is Miss Lulu McConnell.
If you make one crack about me, you little slip, I'll hit you so hard your undershirt will run up your back like a Venetian blind.
I thought the Normandy was in dry dock.
I I see what you mean. Well, let's get right on with the program now that you're acquainted and you're into the spirit of the thing, Mr. Levant. Here's the first question. Now, let's see if we can answer.
Oh, yes, let's.
Dr. Novik's orchestra will play a few bars of an old favorite song. You are to tell me the name of the song. Dr. Novik, please. You put all you had into that one now. That is the song. Now,
Did you say that was an orchestra, Mr. Howard?
Well.
They ought to be on that program. It pays to be ignorant.
This is It Pays to Be Ignorant. Yes, I agree with you. I've heard better music myself.
Oh, that's very...
I say, speaking of music, I know a chap who plays the piano and he hasn't any hands.
Plays the piano without hands. How does he do that?
He plays by ear.
He plays... Mr. McNaughton, you have a point there.
Yes, and it's on the top of his head.
Look, we're evading the question.
You know, Mr. Howard, I'm very musical.
I know you are.
How can you tell?
By the cords in your neck.
You know, Mr. Levant, I've heard you play the piano.
Well, what about it?
Why do you always play Grieg's Piano Concerto?
I like it. It haunts me.
Haunts you? It should. You murdered it often enough.
Mr. Howard, do I have to sit here and be insulted?
Certainly not. Come over here and sit on my lap.
Sit on your lap?
Yeah.
That's practically like having a room with a bath.
Yeah. You know, when I was a child, Mr. Howard, I was carried away with the piano.
You were carried away with the piano?
Yes, the installment man came and took it away while I was practicing.
I see. How did they get both of you in one truck?
Say, Miss McConnell, who's your favorite composer?
Beethoven was my favorite.
I bet you were his, too.
Yeah, very good, Mr. Levant. That was right on the nose. Now let's try and answer the question. What was the title of the song played by the orchestra?
What was it they played?
That's what I'm trying to find out.
Oh, you don't know either.
Certainly I know. I know quite well. I want you to tell me.
Why don't you have them play it again, then?
I'll tell you the name of it. It's When Irish Eyes Are Smiling by the Smiling Irishman.
By the Smiling Irishman. Isn't that great?
The highest price is paid for old cars.
All right. Smiling, Mr. Levant, that is correct.
You know, Mr. Levant is a genius.
Yeah.
Oh, you're wonderful, Mr. Levant.
Oh, you're only saying that because it's the truth.
Because...
You certainly are smart, Mr. Levant. Boy, that shows what an education will do.
Oh, rather, yes. Tell me, Mr. Levant, what college did you go to?
I never went to college.
You never went to college? Then where did you get your knowledge?
I read Esquire.
You mean there's reading in Esquire?
Well, what do you know? I thought there was only figures in it.
Oh, cut it out, please. That's fine. Dr. Novick, that was fine. And now, Mr. Roberts, have we any contestants this evening?
Yes, we have, Mr. Howard. And first of all, we have a young man from the United States Marines, a 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 man from the United States Marines, Private Steve Bartholomew.
How do you do, Steve? And welcome to our program. We certainly are glad to have you with us. This is indeed a pleasure. Where is your hometown? Would you care to tell us?
Teaneck, New Jersey.
Teaneck, New Jersey.
Teaneck, New Jersey.
Teaneck, New Jersey.
Well, drain my oil and call me crankcase.
I see.
I used to work in that town.
I imagine.
I was a barber in a gambling joint.
You were a barber in a gambling joint?
Yeah, I used to trim the customers.
Very cute. Pay no attention to them, Steve. It's getting near their feeding time. We're more than glad We're more than glad to have you with us. How long have you been in the service?
Only about 4 months, sir.
Oh, only about 4 months. I see. You're practically still in training then, is that right?
Yes.
Well,
He's the smallest Marine I ever saw you.
Yes, he is, a little Marine. Well, he'll probably get in places a big Marine can't, Mr. Sheldon. How do you like the Marine?
Very much, sir.
I'm sure you do. Never met a Marine yet who wasn't proud to be a Marine.
You know, Steve, my father was in the Army all his life. In fact, ever since his infantry.
Since his infantry.
Mr. McNaughton, you'd make a good blueprint for an idiot.
Yeah, he certainly would.
I know, but I have other plans.
He has other... What did you do, Steve? That is between you and I. Pay no attention to those other people. What did you do before you joined the service?
I was in school.
Oh, still in school.
He sure has a lot of class.
He has a lot of class. Right. That's the principal thing. Well, we're very happy. We're very happy to have you with us.
Yeah, what's your first name, honey?
Steve.
Steve?
Yes.
Steve.
Oh, ain't that a cute name,
Yeah,
Steve?
Steve.
He's a cute kid, too, ain't he?
Yes, he is.
Oh, he's cute.
All right.
Well, Steve, you can just call me New Potato.
Nah.
I'm nice for mashing.
You're not. You mean you're half-baked. Now, let's get on here, please.
I have a feeling, Mr. Howard, I've seen your face before. An awful feeling.
Yes? You've seen my face before. Well, don't worry about it.
Must have been something I ate.
Must be something I see. Well, you reach into the dunce cap there, Steve, and help us out here by picking out a question for us, please. And when you get a hold of one, would you be kind enough to read it right into the microphone, if you will?
What bird is mentioned in Edgar Allan Poe's poem, The Raven?
Thank you. That's fine, Steve. No help from the audience, please. You heard the question, gentlemen. What bird is mentioned in Edgar Allan Poe's poem entitled The Raven? The question is about birds.
I don't like birds.
He don't like birds. Okay.
Never did like birds.
All right.
Especially the meadowlark.
The meadowlark.
I always thought the lark was a very gentle bird, you know. Remember the song, Lo, Hear the Gentle Lark?
Sure, I remember that song. I used to sing it.
You did.
Lo, yeah, the gentle
Oh,
lark.
wait a minute. Okay. All right. Cut it out, please. Cut it out. Sounds like an all-clear signal. Let's get on here.
I like the way she sings. It ain't pretty.
It's not pretty. I should say it ain't pretty. Now, look, you heard the question. Now, what bird is mentioned in the poem entitled The Raven?
I don't like birds.
You said that before.
I still don't like them.
All right, so you don't like birds.
I don't mind the gutter snipe.
The gutter
I'll never forget the first time I met a gutter snipe.
Well, where did you meet the gutter snipe?
In the gutter.
In the gutter.
Pretty country down there, you know.
Pretty good. Mr. Sheldon, let me appeal to you. Do you know anything about birds?
Oh, sure. Never forget the parrot my Uncle Webfoot used to have up on the farm.
Uh-huh.
One day somebody laid a large ostrich egg in his cage.
Uh-huh.
And the parrot looked at it and said, someone had a hard day.
Someone had a Nice, yes.
I don't like flowers either.
Oh, I see.
Oh, flowers are beautiful.
That's why I don't like them.
Uh-huh.
I don't like blue skies. I don't like sunsets.
Wait a minute. What is it you do like, Mr. Levan?
Women.
Women, Look, what bird is mentioned? Let's get back to the question, please. What bird is mentioned in the poem entitled The Raven? Do any of you know the answer?
I know the answer.
Good. What is it?
I'm not going to tell you. Pay for your own education.
Right.
Hey, Miss Howard, why don't you throw this bum out?
Please. You're talking about the bum I love.
Now, Mr. Howard, did you say the question was about birds?
Yes.
Reminds me of a pigeon I once had, you know.
Uh-huh.
I sent him with a message, and he got his little wing broken.
Too bad.
Had to be towed home.
Had to be towed home.
Must have been pigeon-toed.
Pigeon toe.
That's very good, you know, pigeon.
Pigeon toe. Very good. Oh, now you want to start. Oh, this is awful.
I don't get it.
No, fine. Thank you, Dr. Novick, and I say that with disgust. As a As a musician, Mr. Levant, what would you say about that orchestra?
Well, I thought the opening section, or what is commonly known as the lento a capriccio, was done in very good taste, as was also the following tempo de habanera or O Solo Mio. I also thought the tempo in the vivace movement was commendable. It was fast enough to arouse the emotions, and yet the melodic strength could still be realized.
Look.
The counterpoint or countermelody at times sounded a little like Dark Eyes.
Yeah.
But I imagine that was purely coincidental on the part of the arranger.
Yeah.
The closing section, or prestissimo, was done with very good understanding on Dr. Novik's part, making for a very full and interesting rendition of the composition. However, one thing I'd like to know. What were they playing? Would you like to say something, Mr. Howard?
Would I like to? No. I don't think I can add anything to what has already been said, except that I think everybody should go to the polls and register. It's a very important election. Who is our next guest, please, Mr. Roberts?
Well, our next guest, Mr. Howard, is Private Ruth Clellan of the Women's Army Corps.
How do you do, Miss Clellan? Is that right, Clellan?
Clellan.
Well, how would you like? I'd like you to meet Mr. Levant. Mr. Levant, this is Miss Clellan.
Now that I like.
That you like. Welcome to it, Face to be ignorant. I'm going to have a little trouble with that name. You don't mind if I call you Ruth, do you?
That's fine.
Thank you a lot. Welcome to it, Face to be ignorant. How do you feel?
Fine.
Fine. You certainly do look it. And thank you a lot for coming up here. I hope your friends won't disown you when they hear you've been on this program. Where is your hometown? Would you care to tell us?
Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha, Nebraska. Played there many, many times. Omaha. The Gaiety Theater. Is it still there?
Not that I know of.
Oh, not that you know of. Oh, well, probably. I'm talking about years back and,
Mr. Howard.
Covered wagon days, yeah.
Mr. Howard, you know, I love Omaha, yes. I knew a young lady from that town.
You did?
Perhaps Ruth here might know her. Her name was Susan Frankfurter, W.M.
Susan Frankfurter, W.M. What's the W.M.?
With mustard.
With mustard?
Ruth here. I'm going with a very nice girl now.
Yeah?
Oh, is she nice?
She is.
She has 2 ears.
Well, 2 ears. Wait a minute. Everybody has 2 ears.
Yeah, but not on the same side.
Not on...
That reminds me. I've got to meet a girl in front of the Astor at 10 o'clock tonight.
You do? Who is she?
How do I know who's going to be in front of the Astor at 10 o'clock tonight?
Attention, Mr. Ruth. We're very glad to have you with us. Would you do us a favor here and put your hand in the dunce cap there and pick out a question for us, please? Would you kindly read the question when you get a hold of it, if you will? Just take your time and read it.
Who wrote Mendelssohn's Wedding March?
Well, very, very good. Did you hear the question? Who wrote Mendelssohn's Wedding March? That's a good question. Would you know, Mr. Levant?
Certainly. The same guy that wrote Mendelssohn's Spring Song.
Oh, thank you a lot, Mr. Levant. Thank you.
Incidentally, what was the question?
Oh, isn't this terrible? Did you hear the question, Mr. McNaughton?
Oh, rather, yes, I heard it perfectly and very distinctly.
Uh-huh.
I think you have perfect diction, Mr. Howard.
All right.
Of course, your voice has a sort of a buzzsaw quality.
I see. I mean, can you answer the question?
I haven't heard the answer yet.
You haven't heard?
Miss Ruth, why don't you get your $25 and we'll both go someplace?
I'm trying to find out who wrote Mendelssohn's Wedding March. Miss McConnell, what did they play at your wedding?
Post office.
Post office.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I'll never forget my wedding if I live to be 100.
That's sometime next month, ain't it?
The 25th, I think, to be exact.
Yeah, I think the 25th or 26th.
Miss McConnell, tell me, did you have a nice wedding?
Did I? Oh, was it funny? My old man couldn't find the ring. Did he get an awful fright?
He still got her.
Is that so? Well, I could have married anyone I pleased.
Yeah, but you couldn't please anyone.
You know, I'll never forget my wedding if I live to be 38.
Uh-huh. 38?
Did they throw rice at your wedding, Miss McNaughton?
Oh, did they rather? And it was awful.
What was awful about it?
They made a pudding out of it first.
They made a...
Very messy you know.
You know, my sister's going to get married again. This will make her 5th time.
Has your sister any children?
I should say she has. 5 girls and 5 boys.
10 altogether.
No, one at a time.
One at a time. Let me ask you something. You surely should answer this. You've done quite well so far, Mr. Robert. Did you ever play Mendelssohn?
Yeah, and Mendelssohn lost.
Mendelssohn lost.
I snided him.
You snotted him. What is this? A race or a question? Look, let me take it another way. Maybe this will make it simple.
Yes.
Who wrote Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue?
What are you doing? Changing the question?
I'm not changing the question.
You certainly are. What are you trying to do, confuse us?
I'm not changing the question. I'm merely giving it another twist.
That's what I said. You're twisting the question.
Look, now, the question is who wrote Mendelssohn's Wedding March? I said who wrote Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, because it's really the same thing.
You mean Mendelssohn's Wedding March is the same as Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue?
No.
Mr. Shelton, did your mother ever have any children that lived?
I don't. Listen, Levant, let me appeal to your better side. If you have a better side, Gershwin wrote the Rhapsody in Blue, didn't he?
Certainly he wrote it.
Now then, who wrote Mendelssohn's Wedding March?
Oh, Gershwin.
Good, Johnny, that's all I can say. Give our charming guest here $25 for a question, and I thank you a lot, Ruth, for your patience. At this point, I surely must thank our good friend Oscar Levant for being with us tonight. He held up very nicely under the strain. Our guest next week, ladies and gentlemen, will be Kate Smith and Ted Collins. Tune in next week, won't you please, and turn your ears our way. Now, here's a young man who'll tell you just what we mean when we say...
It pays to be dumb, to be agaze, to be ignorant just like me.
And so on the skipping record, we say goodbye to It Pays to Be Ignorant for tonight on our KSFO Great American Broadcast.